Vanna White is perhaps the most recognisable face on television. America's sweetheart with that unforgettable, dazzling smile. But behind the charm lies a life filled with scandal, heartbreak, and unspoken pain. Throughout her career, Vanna shocked the public when her racy photos surfaced in Playboy magazine, followed by stories of her wild, romantic escapades with a major entertainment star. In today's feature, we'll uncover the rare moments and untold stories behind Vanna's tumultuous life, a journey far more dramatic than anyone could imagine. Before we dive deeper, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Grab yourself a warm drink, maybe a cup of tea or just some water, and sit back as we begin this journey together. Vanna White, born Vanna Marie Rosich in 1957 Inches, North Carolina, was raised by her mother, Joan Marie, and her stepfather, Herbert White, though she had no idea he wasn't her biological father until she was 12. When I was 12, my mum sat me down and said, "Herbert isn't your real father, he's your stepdad." I was shocked because that man had raised me my entire life, and I always thought he was my dad. She later recalled her biological father, as she would later discover, had abandoned her when she was just an infant. But before becoming the household name everyone knows today, Vanna dreamed of shining in the fashion industry. After graduating from high school, she attended the Atlanta School of Design and Fashion, where her modelling journey began. Her natural beauty, sweet face, and confident demeanour quickly made her stand out wherever she went. At 19, Vanna fell in love for the first time with Gordy Watson, a man 14 years her senior. He was mature, charming, and I fell in love at first sight. She once said, "It was a young love that was both passionate and innocent." In 1978, Vanna made her mark when she became a finalist in the Miss Georgia USA pageant, proving she was more than just a pretty face. She was ambitious and determined. Still, deep inside, she craved something bigger. Fame, success, and a chance to make it in Hollywood. In 1980, she took a leap of faith and moved to Los Angeles with nothing but a few dollars and a fierce belief in herself. "I had only $1,500, $500 for a car, and $1,000 to rent an apartment." She did whatever it took to survive, waiting tables, posing for fashion photos, even taking odd jobs in film studios. But Hollywood dreams weren't easy. In a moment of weakness and financial struggle, she agreed to pose for a semi-nude photo shoot, a decision she would later call the biggest mistake of my life. She had no idea that this very scar would become her first great test. According to Liza Greer, a familiar face in Hollywood's wild party scene during the 1980s, Vanna White wasn't just the sweet, wholesome TV personality the public adored. Behind the camera, she lived a much freer and wilder life than anyone could imagine. Greer recalls first meeting White at one of the legendary parties held at the Playboy Mansion, a place where boundaries seemed to disappear. The atmosphere was electric. Dim lights, sultry smiles, and a sense of unspoken freedom. Vanna White looked innocent, but when she was with me, she was completely different, Greer said, her eyes sparkling mischievously as she reminisced about those moments. According to Greer, in Hollywood's world of endless temptation, bisexuality wasn't unusual, especially at the Playboy Mansion, a haven for perpetual indulgence. Speaking to Radar Online, Greer claimed that Vanna White, despite her pure image on screen, was well known among party insiders for her secret same-sex escapades. What makes it even more intriguing is that during that period, Vanna White was engaged to John Gibson, an actor, model, and former male stripper. Gibson was known for his role as Jerry Can on The Young and the Restless, as well as appearances in Three's Company, Eight is Enough, and Chips. He even graced the cover of Playgirl in 1975, flaunting his chiseled physique, a strikingly handsome man, and according to Greer, one who seemed fully aware of his fiancé's private secrets. The secret affair between Vanna White and Liza Greer reached its peak right inside the apartment White shared with John Gibson. It started as an ordinary evening. Vanna had invited Greer over, and not long after, Gibson stepped out to pick up a few things, cigarettes or drinks perhaps. The moment the door closed behind him, The atmosphere in the apartment shifted completely. "We'd been drawn to each other for a long time," Greer recalled. "She was so beautiful, and the chemistry between us was undeniable. Without many words, everything just happened." Vanna took the lead, and Greer followed. What unfolded behind the bedroom door that night went far beyond a casual thrill. Greer didn't reveal explicit details, only admitting that they did in fact make love, and that it was a passionate night she would never forget. When Gibson returned, Vanna quickly regained her calm composure, as if nothing had happened. But Greer, trusting her instincts, knew Vanna wasn't someone who was just experimenting. She sensed experience, an innate sensual confidence in every move Vanna made. Clearly, this wasn't the first time White had explored intimacy with another woman. After that night, though, a distance began to grow between them. Perhaps White realised her career was about to take off, and the America's sweetheart image she was building couldn't coexist with the wild, indulgent past she was trying to leave behind. Especially in the conservative 1980, when society's standards were far less forgiving than they are today. Greer recalled that after that fateful night, every time they ran into each other, both women felt an awkward tension. White, who was on the verge of becoming a national icon through Wheel of Fortune, chose silence, burying all traces of her wild past to protect her future. Ironically, her private life would prove far less peaceful than her polished public image as America's model TV hostess. Her relationship with John Gibson, the man everyone thought she would spend her life with, ended in tragedy when he died in a plane crash in 1986. Vanna White openly shared her heartbreak with the public, but the memories of her secret affairs remained forever locked away in the shadows. Today, looking back, Vanna White's story isn't just a sensational Hollywood rumour. It's a deeply human portrait of a young woman, torn between her desire for personal freedom and the crushing weight of social expectations. In an era when television demanded flawless perfection, Vanna had to sacrifice parts of her true self in exchange for success. Perhaps if it had happened in today's world when society is more open and accepting of diverse sexual identities, Vanna White could have lived authentically without fear or secrecy. But in the 1980s, silence was the only choice she had to protect her career. A recent A&E documentary shocked the public by exposing the dark secrets hidden inside Hugh Hefner's infamous Playboy mansion, truths that few had ever dared to reveal. One of the most disturbing revelations was about something called Pig Night, a ritual personally created and hosted by Hefner himself. This wasn't just an ordinary party. It was an event where Hefner would invite prostitutes to entertain his VIP guests during lavish dinner gatherings, many of whom were well-known Hollywood celebrities and powerful figures from high society. The name alone, Pig Night, is enough to make anyone shudder. And the ritual exposed a deeply sinister side of the elite world, one where morality and legality seemed to vanish entirely and everything could be bought. Every Thursday night, Hefner allegedly had cars sent to pick up sex workers from various parts of Los Angeles and bring them to his mansion to serve special guests. These women weren't Hefner's regular girlfriends. They were part of his strange and disturbing weekly ritual. They came from well-known brothel and were brought in to participate in nights of indulgence that often lasted until dawn. And who were the guests at these exclusive gatherings? They were movie stars, entertainment icons, and figures of immense influence. The kind of people admired by millions. Among them were Hefner's close friends and big names like Jack Nicholson, Rod Stewart, and even Sylvester Stallone. Each event followed a carefully orchestrated pattern steeped in secrecy, and many of those who attended have kept the details buried to this day. The story of Pig Night became even more sensational when Liza Greer, one of the key figures involved in those events, revealed in her book You'll Never Love in This Town Again that she had been romantically involved with several major Hollywood stars, including Vanna White, who would later rise to fame as a television, sex symbol, and household name through Wheel of Fortune. The book exposed shocking details about Greer's intimate encounters with some of the biggest names in entertainment. Actors like Warren Beatty and James Caan, and legendary musicians such as Don Henley and George Harrison, all of them, according to Greer, were part of a lavish yet shadowy world that Hollywood carefully concealed behind its glittering facade. And, of course, she mentioned the private moments involving Vanna White, who seemingly found herself drawn, perhaps unwillingly, into that same secretive world of pleasure and excess. However, Vanna White's story took a different turn when a set of risque photos from her early years surfaced, sparking one of the biggest scandals of her career. In the late 1970s, as a newcomer in Hollywood, Vanna was struggling financially and couldn't even afford rent. Too embarrassed to ask her father for help, she reluctantly agreed to pose for a sensual photo shoot just to make ends meet. Even then, she reportedly felt uneasy and hesitant throughout the process, never imagining that those photos would later resurface and change the course of her life forever. While Vanna White only intended to earn a bit of money through modest, low-profile work, those very photos would later become one of the biggest scandals of her career. After joining Wheel of Fortune and becoming the show's beloved hostess, the images resurfaced to haunt her, creating quite a stir in the media. Even though White never set out to become a sex symbol, Hugh Hefner discovered the photos and published them on the cover of Playboy magazine, turning her into an overnight sensation. In an instant, she went from being a game show co-host to one of Hollywood's most talked about women, her name synonymous with glamour and allure. Life during those years was anything but easy for Vanna White. She faced difficult choices, navigating an industry glittering with fame but rife with temptation. The sacrifices she made to survive in that world led many to question the moral boundaries and personal compromises demanded by Hollywood's seductive environment. Was Vanna truly innocent when she posed for those revealing photos? Did she ever regret that decision? Perhaps those questions will never have a definitive answer. The sexy photos of Vanna White had the potential to shake the entire entertainment industry, and Hugh Hefner, the Playboy mogul, knew it better than anyone. At the time, White was young and just beginning to find her place in the spotlight. When she learned that the photos might be released, she panicked. Terrified that her newly budding career would be destroyed, she went to see Hefner in person, pleading with him not to publish them. "He was my friend," White recalled. "I went to him and begged, 'Hef, if you run those photos, everything I've worked so hard for could come crashing down.' But despite her desperate pleas, Hefner went ahead with publication. Left with no choice, White filed a $5.2 million lawsuit against Hefner and Playboy magazine in federal court. Yet, no matter how hard she fought, the images still made their way to the public, leaving her heartbroken and humiliated. Fortunately, the fallout wasn't as devastating as she feared. The audience's affection for Vanna White never faded, and the scandal gradually became just a forgotten footnote from her wild younger days, long before she became a beloved television icon. In the years that followed, White worked tirelessly to rebuild her image as graceful and wholesome. Her engagement to actor and pilot John Gibson was widely celebrated as a fairy tale romance, but that happiness was tragically short-lived. In 1986, Gibson was killed in a plane crash, leaving White devastated. "My boyfriend died in a plane crash," she once said tearfully. "It was just unbearable. The loss nearly broke her, but she found the strength to rise again, continuing both her life and her career." Not long after, she was briefly linked to Hollywood superstar Sylvester Stallone. The pair were spotted holding hands in 1988, and Stallone even took White as his guest to an elegant dinner at the White House. However, their relationship soon fizzled out, as fleeting as a passing breeze. From then on, if Vanna White had any other romantic adventures, she kept them far from the intrusive glare of the media. 4 years after that heartbreaking loss, White found new hope with film producer George Santo Pro Petro. They held a grand wedding and began building a home together. In 1992, White happily announced she was pregnant with her first child. The show Wheel of Fortune, where she worked, even incorporated her joy into a puzzle that read, "Vanna is pregnant." But that happiness was short-lived. Shortly afterward, White suffered a painful miscarriage, just as the public was still celebrating her good news. Still, fortune eventually smiled on her. In 1994, White gave birth to her son, Nico, and in 1997, she welcomed her daughter, She. However, family bliss didn't last forever. After nearly a decade together, White and Santo Pro officially divorced in 2002, closing a deeply emotional chapter of her life. It wasn't until 2012, a decade after the breakup, that White found love again with John Donaldson, a humble construction contractor. Their relationship was quiet and low-key. For more than 10 years, they have shared a simple, grounded life together. Though they never married, White once told People magazine, "I feel like we're already married. Do we need a wedding? No, because we're happy the way we are." Today, when you look at Vanna White, elegant, composed, and radiant before the camera, it's hard to imagine that she has endured such storms and passionate romances. Some stories from her past, like actress Liza Greer's claim of a passionate night with White, have never been confirmed or denied. It seems White has chosen to let the past rest quietly, keeping for herself an image of dignity, grace, and strength in the public eye. Her life, much like the wheel of fortune she has turned for over 4 decades, has spun through countless ups and downs, only to finally land on peace. Now at over 65, Vanna remains at the peak of a career that many dream of, but few sustain as long as she has. As she once revealed, she works only about 34 days a year, filming up to 6 episodes per day, meaning she enjoys over 300 days of personal time annually. This balance allows her to maintain both professional prominence and personal freedom. Still, the familiar face loved by millions, yet fully able to live her life off-screen. In September 2023, she signed a new contract to continue hosting Wheel of Fortune through the 2025-26 season, ensuring her place in television's spinning wheel for years to come. Her present life also shines with personal warmth. Her enduring friendship with longtime co-host Pat Shack. After Sayax's retirement in June 2024, Vanna shared, "I still see him. We still have dinner together. Yes, he's still part of my life." For Vanna, it's clear work is just one part of a much larger picture built on connection and gratitude. Beyond television, Vanna finds joy in her creative hobbies, especially crocheting and knitting. She even launched her own yarn line, Vanna's Choice. These quiet, fulfilling moments keep her grounded, not just as a TV icon, but as a woman with passion, balance, and a deeply cherished private life.